You know, I really do find this hard to believe. Toyota, they're a bloody good manufacturer, but geez, there are some pretty serious issues that you guys have to deal with, and you haven't yet. So come on, sort out. G'day everybody, Terry King here from Jafffa Adventures. Welcome to the channel. So I've been asked on a couple of occasions now what I think my top 5 mods to this 200 series cruiser would be. And that got me to thinking. Now there are some modifications that I believe where my hand has actually been forced, and I've had to do those modifications simply to correct a deficit or a design fault in the vehicle itself. So then that got me to thinking, well, what are the top 5 design faults that I believe are in this vehicle? Or what are the top 5 things that I think Toyota has got wrong? And number 1 for me, by a country mile, is the transmission in these things. The actual quality of the transmission is fantastic. They're robust, they don't wear out, but the programming behind the transmission is a shocker. And where you can really notice that is on highway speeds. So when you're doing 100 kilometers an hour on a dead flat road, you're lucky if the transmission will select 6th gear. If you see a whiff of a hill coming up, it'll drop down to 5th. And it'll hold 5th, and it will not go back up into 6th until either you're on a decline or on a dead flat for quite a lengthy period of time. And you might actually even have to lift your foot up off of the accelerator. Now these trucks have got the grunt to be able to hold a gear. There's no doubt about that, and there's no reason that it should be dropping down into lower gears, and there's no reason that it should be starting to slip the torque converter. And what happens as soon as you start slipping that torque converter is you generate a crap load of heat. I bought this car on the second-hand market. It had about 50,000 kilometers on it, and it didn't have any modifications on it when I purchased it. However, it was used to tow a caravan. And one of the first things that I did was actually drop the transmission fluid and have a look at that. And believe it or not, that was a dark, dark red, and it actually had a scent of burntness to it. Burntness, is that a word? Anyway, it is now. And that's a pretty shocking situation where you've got practically a brand new vehicle that's only towed a caravan, and you've got automatic transmission fluid that's actually being burnt. And the reason that I think that's the case is because that torque converter's been slipping, and you get a massive, massive generation of temperatures when that torque converter slips. Now the second design fault that I believe Toyota has with these vehicles, and it's not too far behind the first one, as a matter of fact, are the airboxes. The airboxes are shocking in terms of sealing for dust. It's a known problem. There have been lots of individuals out there that have actually had dusted motors because of the airbox. And there's 2 issues there. 1, the actual seal, where the airbox seals against the filter, and 2, the actual paper filter lets a little bit of dust through. Now, Toyota claims that that's within their manufacturing specifications and there's no problem with it. That sits really uncomfortable with me. A paper element or a filter element, in my mind, is designed to remove all visible dust. I don't want to see anything on the clean side of my intake. So be very, very careful if you're looking at one of these in the second-hand market. Pull that airbox off and have a look on the clean side and see whether you've got dust ingress on the clean side of the intake. That would be a real concern for me. The number 3 problem or design fault that I see with these vehicles is the top mount intercooler. Now listen, they don't work too bad, I guess, in factory form. You start to run into a little bit of a decrease in efficiency with them when you start mounting bull bars on them and spotlights, and you actually interfere with the flow of air that goes into that ductwork. But put all of that aside for a second. Those intercoolers, the ductwork that goes into those intercoolers can be so much more efficient. Now, I've got a 79 series bonnet scoop now mounted on the top of the car, and I put a whole video series together on that bonnet scoop, and I'll put a link to that video series in the description. But one of the things in that video series was I actually did an inlet air temperature testing where I ran the car with the bonnet scoop blocked off, so it was just getting air intake through the original factory ductwork, and then with it unblocked, where it was getting air through both the factory intake and through the bonnet scoop, the 79 series bonnet scoop. and there was a massive increase in efficiency in the charge air temperature with the bonnet scoop on it. So the top mount intercooler can be so much more efficient than what it is and what it's been designed for through the factory. And hey, Toyota could have bloody saved themselves some money. They've already got the molds and the stamps for the 79 series bonnet scoop. Just pop it onto the 200. Now I'm starting to get into the more minor or pain in the backside type issues with the Landcruiser, not the critical ones like those top three that I've mentioned. And the fourth one for me would probably have to be the factory headlights. This is a 2010 model and the headlights are like candles. You know, my goodness, we're in the bloody 20th century here, Toyota. Step it up. Put some decent lights in the car. And the fifth one that I think is a little bit of a pain in the backside, but not critical, is what I call the KSS Lean. This is a VX model cruiser equipped with the KSS. And what I find with that KSS over time is the vehicle starts to develop a little bit of a lean to it. And the passenger side sits lower than the driver's side. Now it's an easy enough thing to fix. Park your car on a flat surface. You undo the bleed screws on the KSS unit, you give the car a little bit of a shake, let it sit for a second, do them back up, and it rights itself. But it's a bit of a pain in the backside, and it's something that you shouldn't have to do on practically a brand new car. Now I appreciate the KSS is not a Toyota unit. In fact, I think it was designed and is manufactured here in Australia, in Perth. However, Toyota has fitted it to their cars. So they should be 100% certain that it is going to function as it should. And a lean, in my mind, is not functioning as it should. And I'll throw a bonus number 6 in there just because I'm on a rant. And that is the fuel tank system. This is a diesel vehicle. It's got 2 fuel tanks and it's got 1 fuel gauge. And as I understand it, how it operates is as you use the fuel level drops in both tanks. Now, that's fine, and I've never had an issue with it, so there's no dramas there. Prior to this, I had an 80 series, however, which had 2 separate fuel gauges, one for the auxiliary tank and one for the main tank. And I like that system a whole lot better, but it just gives you a little bit more accuracy on actually what you've got in each of the tanks. Now, perhaps I can understand why they have done that. You know, they're trying to make these things a little bit more idiot-proof as technology advances. And if you don't hit the button on the dash to change from the auxiliary tank to the main tank or vice versa, then you run the risk of running out of fuel in one of your tanks. So it is more idiot-proof. I get that. I don't know, I just prefer the manual control myself where I can actually have a switching mechanism to switch between the 2 tanks. So that's my rant in terms of what I believe are some design features in this car and that I think Toyota should get right, which is an excellent segue into the next section of my discussion around modifications. So I have been asked, well, what are the top 5 modifications that you've done to the vehicle that you would recommend to somebody? If you'd like to hear about those, hit that subscribe button and we'll go through those next week. If you've got a friend with a 200 and you think that they might benefit from some of this, please share the video with them. Who knows, they might not know about these things either, and it's always great to share a helping hand. Keep the shiny side up, everybody. Have a good one. We'll see you next episode. Bye now.